Do you say Shibuya? Sorry. Welcome back to the TMCJ
Yes!
podcast.
He wins! Get in!
Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We're on segment 3, our wild card, and this week it is a book review. We are Blue told me to read this book years ago, and I finally got around to it. The reason it took me so long is I was listening to it on Audible, and I started a book series which I've talked about on this podcast, which took me a while to get through because it turns out there were 2 trilogies. And now that I've finished those, I've moved on to this one. The book, Red Rising, and it is excellent. Like, I started this book late last week, and I've already finished it and moved on to the second book, which I'm 10 chapters into the second book. It's just... And I listened to the audiobook, too, just because I'm already in the middle of way too many physical books. So... Excellent book. It's sort of sci-fi, political, philosophical. It's got a little bit of everything. So I'll do a quick plot synopsis, and feel free to jump in at any point to talk about it.
Well, I was thinking, should we do it like just in chronological order, the events? I mean, the up till the point where he leaves the mine, that's like tutorials. We don't have to talk much about that. That's just explaining the characters.
But that context is very important, I feel.
It is.
So let's do that then. I'll summarize a part and then we'll discuss. I'll summarize a part and then we'll discuss.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the rare instances where we've both read this book. Well, obviously, since he recommended it to me.
Many times.
So,
Listen, I've read it many times. Okay.
So the book opens up and you're following Darrow, who is he's a character who lives in a mine. Deep below the surface of Mars, and it's established that they're mining and trying to pull out helium to terraform the atmosphere and trying to make Mars livable. They're pioneers out there, and they're suffering through this, and they have a very rigid caste system, with people above them to try and make sure that essentially anyone who's out in the universe there, any set of lungs needs to have a purpose, essentially. Mm-hmm. To make sure that resources aren't consumed. So he holds the rank in his drilling crew of Helldiver, which is a person who operates... It's essentially like a forward scout for the main drill. So he's the one who's, drilling way ahead of everyone else. He has to risk, being hit with any sort of tectonic action, magma, pockets of gas that can blow him away.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Ironically. And the I can't remember what they're called, the worms.
Oh yeah, pit vipers.
Pit vipers.
Yeah, so there are indigenous life forms deep within the rock that can jump out and very, very venomous that they have to worry about drilling into or
especially
encountering.
The children.
Yeah. The young pit vipers, because the older ones will just bite you and then try to eat you. The younger ones haven't learned control yet, and so they'll just bite you and empty their venom into you and kill you pretty much instantly. Or they'll burrow into you and lay their egg. Let's not dwell on this too much. So it's established that there are many different drilling clans in their community, and each clan has a quota to meet, and whoever meets the highest, not only passes the quota but gets the highest level, gets special privileges. They get extra food, they get extra booze, they get extra cigarettes,
luxuries like silk and stuff.
And luxury clothing, exactly. And it's also established that the other clans are a bit more desperate, and so it's not uncommon to have, wives and daughters go off and sell their bodies to these, either the ones that are more successful or to the guards to make sure that, or to get food and medicine and things for their children or their families. So it's
no NHS.
Yeah, it's established to be an extremely rough and extremely brutal society, but again, it's all couched in the fact that this is a necessity to make sure that they're going to be able to live and establish a surface civilization on Mars, because Earth is overcrowded and the resources are used up and blah 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 blah. And the caste system is based on like a color. Like you're like the red caste is the lowest, and that's what he is. He's part of the red caste, the miners. There's the gray caste, who are like the guards and police, and they mention a few others. The gold caste is the highest of the high. They're the top of the society, and they very rarely see them because they very rarely come down to the mines to talk to them. Then there's also like I think one guy is like a green or a brown or something. He's an administrator.
So I think brown are like kind of janitor class. Blue is tech class. Pink.
But hold on,
is
we don't know about them yet.
True.
We don't know about them yet.
It's like Pikmin.
Yeah. So anyway, but the point being, that's how they do it, and there are different things, and it's established that like the classes are physically distinct from each other. Like the red caste tend to be like thinner and more scrawny, and have like they're
built for manual labor.
Yeah, they're built for manual labor, but not longevity. Because he describes his uncle at one point as an old man of 35. Like, so the implication being that like you're not going to live much longer past that. Like he's a man grown and married and thinking about children, and he's 16 in the book. He's got a wife named Io. Anyway, so he knows, because he's been counting, that he's won the laurel, he calls it, because he's got the most, he's hit his quota and surpassed it, and beaten all the other teams. But at the banquet where they give it out to the same team they give it out to every year. And then he realizes at that point it's fixed, and he's furious. And his wife talks him down and calms him down, and she sneaks him away to like this underground garden, which is...
No, it's actually on the surface, I think.
It isn't actually.
They look up and see the...
It's artificial.
Is it?
I think it's artificial. Well, it's under a bubble at the very least, because at that point he doesn't realize what the big revelation that comes later. I may be misremembering this. So when I read physical books, I tend to retain things a lot better. When I listen to audiobooks, some of the details get fuzzy for me.
You could be right. Like I said, it's been 2 years.
But either way, at this point, he goes up and there's like a small garden, essentially. And it's a garden that's exclusive to the Greys. But I believe it's still underground. But in like a bubble, like an artificial garden underground. But it's not for Reds. Anyway, they go up there, they bang, and they head back down. And I say that crassly, but honestly, they've got... Like, him and his wife have this very sweet relationship early on. And they go down, but they get caught. And so they're both sentenced to be whipped because they're not supposed to be up there. They've violated the caste system. And they reiterate over and over that their society is like... Obedience is a necessity so that they can terraform Mars, and so that they're the pioneers. They have to make these sacrifices so that the rest of the population can get there, and they'll be heroes after this once all the toil and sacrifice is done. Now, when they're being whipped, it's noted that this just happens to be the day that a gold is down inspecting the mine, this particular mine. Not only any particular gold, but the gold who is the overseer, the arch-governor of the entire planet. And his wife takes the opportunity, because she's a bit of a, like...
Darrow's wife, that is, not the arch-governor.
Yeah, sorry, Darrow's wife, the main character's wife. She has a rebellious streak in her. And she sings a song that they are not supposed to sing. It's a song of rebellion, essentially.
About how the gold ruled with iron chains.
Yeah, I don't remember the words to the song, but
it.
if you've ever seen Les Mis, what is it?
That's what put the hanging tree in my head.
Oh yeah, hanging tree.
It's
yeah,
that's
that's
very
it.
similar.
It's hanging tree from Hunger Games. Yep. or
The
the
Reds have a kind of religion.
hold on, the one I'm thinking of is I want to remember the lyrics before I forget. It's the do you hear the people singing the song of angry men? The one from Les Mis.
Les Mis, yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go on. They have a kind of religion.
Yeah, so they believe there is a kind of a reaper who guides you onto an afterlife.
Yeah, beyond the veil, as they say.
That's it, yeah, the veil. And yeah, it's a bit kind of a sadder song than the one in Les Mis. It's a lot more. Da, da, da,
It's so good, and in the audiobook version, they actually sing it at the end of the book. Oh, so good.
Yeah, very touching moment. So the wife is being
swings. The Reaper swings. Yeah, no, sorry. That I remember that line once you said they talk about the Reaper.
Well, no, it's the Reaper swings and it's the Reaper sings, I think.
Oh, dude, is it different? Maybe I couldn't hear the guy's accent.
It's on.
But yeah, still good.
But yeah, so she starts singing this in front of. Wait, this is your job.
Sorry, she sings it, and it's a death sentence, so they hang her. Or she's sentenced to hang.
No, that was very abrupt.
Well, I realized that
sentence, so
we have a lot to get through.
Go.
So I'm not doing that entirely. It's a longer scene than that. And they do make a point throughout the first chapter that they allow the family members to pull the legs of the people who are being hanged to properly break their neck. Because, so a lot of people don't realize this. When somebody was sentenced to hanging, the whole idea behind the trap door is they would fall and the rope would break their neck. So the death was instantaneous. They didn't swing up there choking.
No.
But in low Mars gravity, Mars has a significantly lower gravity than Earth. So they have the family pull them because otherwise they'd just be up there choking, and it would be a very painful, brutal death. And so he has to go up there and pull his wife's legs to break her neck. Again, brutal. And it again reinforces how harsh and rough this society is. But over and over, even in his own mind and his own ruminations, Darrow is going like, this is necessary because of we need to terraform Mars. We're sacrificing all of this for the future of mankind. Anyway, so him and his grief, he goes up and he does something else, which is illegal. Her body is meant to be left up there because... So she actually sings the song on the while she's being hung too, and they allow that for her last words. And so he goes up and he wants to bury her, which is also illegal. She's supposed to be just left up there to rot, as an example. And on his way up there, his uncle doesn't necessarily try to stop him, but just hands him a flask and has him drink it, and then he goes up, cuts his wife's body down. And then they sentence him to hang. And he does, but he doesn't die. Because whatever his uncle gave him was something to make his heart stop. And then somebody moved him into a tunnel. And he wakes up and there are people picking him up and moving him. And they turn out to be a terrorist group that was mentioned earlier. The Sons of Ares, essentially Reds who are trying to rebel against the Order. And they take him up, and he meets one of their faction leaders, who reveals that there's a lot more. He brings him up to the actual surface, and he sees that there are cities, there are gardens, there's no domes. The atmosphere has been terraformed. There's greenery out on the landscape. He sees all these other colors he didn't know about. The pinks Blue mentioned, the blues, there are greens, there are browns, there are violets. All these different colors of cast, which he didn't know existed. The golds are still on top, and they still, float about in their hover boots. They've got, bottles of wine. They're going for a picnic out in a garden. And
although there are two kinds of gold.
There are, and that is revealed to him next, is that within the castes there are castes. So they have what are called the low reds and the high reds. The low reds are the ones like him who know nothing about what goes on the surface. They just mine in that society with that same lie. There are the high reds, which are the reds that live above the surface, and they act as, janitors and laborers and, street sweepers or whatever. And then amongst the golds, there are what are called the pixies, which are just the golds that are indulgent. They live their lives in luxury. They flirt, they eat, they drink, and they do practically nothing. Then there are like what are called the iron golds. The golds who are like, they're warriors, they're commanders, they're people who are, military, they're politicians, there are bureaucrats, which are referred to as like the copper golds or the bronze golds or whatever. So that's the first bit. Do you want to like stop and do a little chat about that before we move on?
I mean, I feel like we can chat as we go.
But any thoughts? I definitely have things to say about that first bit that I haven't yet. So.
Also, I have no doubt that we're not going to get onto the second book, by the way, at all. Because we're like, we just got past the tutorial and we're halfway through the.
We are, and
second.
I think that. So I'm going to do two things. I think that this is probably going to go over. But second of all, I think that I'm going to publish this as an independent segment on the YouTube channel, just because.
Okay. I mean, maybe wait until we've done all the segments for the trilogy.
Oh, we can stitch them together. That'd be cool. All right, but let's not metagame a little bit too much here.
So the Sons of Ares, your typical group, but they also have higher connections. So Reds are not stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that's made clear. They're all the classes are physically distinct, and they have some biological and technical modifications depending on your class. But a while back I talked about Brave New World, where they have the different classes in that, the gammas and the alphas and the betas and the deltas. Mm-hmm. In that book, they actually physically altered the mental capacity of the lower classes to make them more stupid. They don't do that in this world.
Well,
they make the upper classes more smart, but they don't really alter the lower. So you go on. What were you going to say?
There is, and I'm just gonna very briefly brush up against this fact because it's something that you'll learn later.
Mm.
There are some classes that there's one in particular I'm thinking of where they are purposefully born into a Ice Age level history of time. Like they're born into clans of people who know nothing about technology.
Are you talking about the Obsidians?
Yes.
They've
haven't experienced to what level it is yet.
Yeah, it was a guess. That was a guess on my part because they've alluded to the fact that the Obsidians have a fear of technology. So. Yeah,
they're brought up in a very different way to all the other classes. Mm. Maybe not the Blues, because the Blues are kind of weird. They have like computer chips in their heads and stuff. But
yeah. Sorry, we're kind of talking about like the world in general, but that first part, like, what were your thoughts on it? Like, did you?
It's very emotional. The first part.
It is. Well,
it's not particularly exciting, but it's very emotional.
Yeah. You really, the author does a very good job of making you really feel like the anguish and struggle. Like,
I mean, he just had to kill his wife. Like, how much more anguished can you be?
Yeah,
and it gives him a real drive to do what he does in the rest of the story.
It does, and it's one of those things where I feel like a bit of the weight and a bit of the moral depth might be lost on a lot of modern audiences who don't do too much of a read of history, because like that kind of brutal struggle and life wasn't uncommon even 200 years ago, even 100 years ago. You had to deal with that sort of like life and death and making a choice and working and stuff like that. We look at it as horrible now, like with our modern luxuries. But
Yeah. But we're not working down in a coal mine.
exactly, yeah. For the people who did that, it was a way of life, and it's not necessarily a way of life that they feel like they need to get away from or something like that. It was just like, I work in the mines because my uncle worked in the mines, and I worked in the mines because my father worked in the mines, and I'm proud of my work. I'm a hill diver. That sort of thing.
Should we get to the next? Because the next bit's a bit fucky, isn't it?
I love the next bit. Well, you're talking about before the, okay.
I'm talking about before the institution.
You're right. So the next bit, he finds out what his mission is going, like his, they convince him through several means to try to join the Sunsvaries, mainly by showing him all of this and the fact that they've been lied to their entire lives. And the fact that his wife's sacrifice was just so little, right, in the eyes of all of this. Not only have they terraformed Mars, he finds out, but they've terraformed all of the planets, all of the moons. There are colonies stretching out across the solar system, everywhere. And it's implied that even further beyond that, but so far they haven't talked about anything past Pluto, where I am in the second book. But yeah, so through this way they convince him and they give him a mission, and he honestly says in the book that he would rather just be given a bomb or a gun and go out as rage and then blow something up. But they give him a different mission, because he passes a test that allows him to join them, and the mission. So he's established as being very clever, despite his low origins. And so they bring him to somebody who's called a carver, a violet. The violets are like the entertainers, the artisans, the musical and creative people in the world, the painters, the singers, the dancers, that sort of thing. And he owns like a nightclub, and he has connections with these people. So they pay him a shit ton of money, and he essentially takes him, and over a brutally long series of months, they replace his skin, they replace his eyes, they replace his muscles, they enhance his organs, they enhance his mind, they do all of these things, and they make him into a gold. So his
a process that a lot of people had tried to do previously, and everyone had died.
They say there were 92 attempts, and he was the first success, partially because he had been bitten by one of those pit vipers they talked about earlier, and essentially the venom had made his heart more robust because it had to adapt. Because
he was the second success.
He was the first success, and they actually in the second book they talk about this. He was the first, and then a colleague made the second one.
The second one was made before him.
Are you talking about Titus?
Yes, in the long run, but they made Titus before they made Darrow.
Really? Okay. In the books, they say after. I just read through this bit, and he says that, Mickey says that Titus was made by a colleague based on his success with him.
Maybe. I could have sworn that Mickey made it off of some notes that he got from... I don't know.
I may be misremembering that, but either way, it's either Mickey learned. Sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So they make him into a gold. He goes from being he's like, oh, I was tall for a red, but he goes from being 5 foot something to being over 8 feet tall, and he goes from having just being kind of this lean, wiry muscled person to being this titan of a man who's got probably weighs 300 pounds and most of it's muscle. His bone density, they established that, golds can the way that normal humans operate in 1 Earth gravity, they operate in 5 easily. And so in lower gravity, they're basically, they can jump meters into the air and things like that. Their bone density is so hard that they're almost impossible to break. It's 5 times as dense as a normal person's. And all of this stuff to basically, so this is what I mean when I say that the casts are different so different physically.
Yeah.
Like
And also mentally, because he also has lessons.
He does. So, well, first of all, they modify his brain too. They put like implants so that he can like learn faster and think quicker and things like that. And so after he's recovered from all the physical trauma of having this done to him, like, cause they establish it's excruciatingly painful. So after like they go through the physical trauma, and then they move on, and now he's gotta learn to, he's gotta train, he's gotta like get used to his new body. He's also got to pick up history, philosophy, mathematics, science, all of this stuff that's expected of someone who is a gold, an ambitious gold. And a few times he actually accidentally injures someone because he doesn't know his own strength. Like somebody, does something to him and he gives what he thinks is just like a gentle punch and he dislocates their shoulder. And so this goes on and he gets through all the training, and then his mission is to go take a entrance exam and join an institute. So there's the highest caste of golds are known as the Peerless Scarred. Essentially, they're people who have made it through this institute and passed, and they have like they're otherwise perfect, like Greek god-esque faces are scarred with one curved like scar down the side of their face. So he passes the test, and not only does he pass the test, but he actually has to be audited by essentially this gold bureau to make sure he didn't cheat, because he was essentially one of the upper outliers.
Yeah, top 10% or something. So
he gets into the institute, and then, so before I get into what happens in the institute, let's talk about that. So
okay.
What are your thoughts?
So yeah, he also gets set up with like a really nice apartment and stuff like that
to establish himself as one of the gentry.
Yeah, and he's not entirely used to gold life yet. So he goes to like riding lessons, and this other girl who's also gold like basically laughs at him because he can't ride a horse.
Yeah, it's established she's riding a stallion and he's riding a pony, and he gets thrown by the pony.
Yeah. And so he's still struggling to fit in at this point. But during the test, he displays his new athleticism by managing to even fool another gold who's taking the test. I can't remember what he does, but it's aimed with a pencil.
It's this. So the girl is like, she's taking the test and she's tapping on a bracelet. So it's an otherwise quiet room, and she's like pissing him off because she's making this tapping noise, and it annoys him so much. While she's looking away, he very quickly and dexterously jumps or moves his arm, grabs her pencil, her stylus, and hides it up his sleeve before she even notices. And so she looks around bewildered, and no one will give her another stylus. And so she just runs out of the room crying because she can't take the test anymore because she lost her stylus.
But she still passes.
So, no, it wasn't her. She fails.
No,
You're thinking of a different girl.
Because they name her.
No, you're thinking of a different girl. You're thinking of Antonia.
Okay.
But anyway, or at least I don't think she shows up in the book.
Because I'm pretty sure later on she comes up to you and she's like, "Wow, you're a dickhead. You took my pencil."
You're right. That's Antonia. No, it's not her. It's another girl in the room.
Right.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. She does come up and tell him he's a dickhead, but that's a different girl. She's a girl that saw him do that.
No, the teacher saw him do it.
Yep, but there are two people in the room that saw him do it, and they come up to him after and tell him about it. I'll get to an
important detail.
So it isn't an important detail, but it is later because they become major characters. So Antonia she comes up to him and she calls him a cutter as she walks past him out of the test room, which he establishes is she's calling him ruthless essentially because of what he did to the other girl. And then the other person that comes up to him is named Cassius, who is another guy in the room, who says, yeah, "It's good that you did that. I was about to take that girl's eyes out." Or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, fun little anecdote from my younger life. We had to take standardized tests in the U.S. I'm sure you probably had to in school as well. During one of them, one of my friends had a bit of a cold, and he was sniffling like during the test, and it was pissing off a girl like behind him. And she during one of the breaks, she very passive aggressively took like 20 tissues out of a tissue box and then slammed him on his desk, and then went back to her seat. So my friend, and I'm always I love this story. He took all of them at once and just wiped his nose on them once and then threw them all in the trash. And then just turned back at her and was like, "Thanks." And then continued to sniffle for the rest of the test. Oh, it made me laugh. Anyway, sorry. You were saying?
Well, no. What was I saying?
You were talking about what happened during the test and his interaction with the golds.
Well, no, I'm saying that was kind of a small detail. We should move on because we're already at 30-minute mark. We're going to have to split this into two for this book.
Are we?
I mean, unless we're going to have an hour-long segment.
We might. I know you have stuff to do in an hour from now, so I won't keep us still. If it does,
we'll get to the point after the first test.
I think once we get to the Institute, things are going to speed up because quite a lot of events happen, and really there isn't a whole lot of analysis to be done there. But anyway, it's established that there are certain modes of acting, ways of speaking that golds use that reds don't, and that reds use that golds don't. Like, for instance, the reds would swear by saying plotitam, but the golds would swear by saying goritam. Something like that. And that does become relevant in the book. Anyway, they move on. He passes the exam with flying colors, and then he is admitted into the Institute. So they go in, there's a big gathering of all the people. He meets some interesting characters on the train ride over to the opening ceremony, and the guy who hung his wife, the Arch-Governor of Mars, gives a long speech about the fall of democracy and the folly and the need to have natural selection and to be strong because the golds conquered all of the planet. Oh, that's the other thing. A bit of lore that is established in the book is that the way the current society came up from our modern time, Earth colonized the moon because the moon was the logical place to build ships and colonize the rest of the solar system because it was too costly to build them on Earth and then fly them up out of space, so you have to escape gravity. But the moon has practically no gravity, so. And then the moon was like, well, we're doing all this work, fuck it. And they rebelled and they launched a war against Earth. That was the golds. And they beat Earth. And so the moon is essentially the hub of civilization in this world. And they established the caste system. And so essentially the current society was founded by conquerors, people who had ventured out from their moon and taken over the rest of the solar system. Anyway, gives the opening ceremony. They go into a underground room. Or not an underground room. They go into a big dining hall, and they, based on their scores, they go into different tables and they talk and chat with each other and socialize and
think like Hogwarts.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Hogwarts after the opening ceremony. It has a very honestly, it
made
feels
a far better opening ceremony if what happened next happened in Hogwarts.
Oh my god. Yeah. Can you imagine something? Oh, okay, sorry. I'll say that. I don't want to.
Yeah.
So they have the opening ceremony again. Yeah, like Blue said, think like the opening ceremony in the beginning of the first Hogwarts book or the first Hogwarts movie. If you're like me and didn't read the books. They then go off to bed and it's soft and he's like, oh, this isn't harsh at all. This is just nice and easy and relaxed. If this is what the gold thinks is, harsh, then clearly they deserve to be overthrown and so on and so on. And then in the middle of the night, like obsidians break in. They're kind of like the bruisers of this world. Like they're like 9 feet tall and just nothing but muscle and like purebred warriors.
Yeah, brick shithouses.
Yeah, exactly. And they are beating the ever-loving shit out of him. And he at first is like indignant. Oh God, I've been found out and whatnot. But he sees that they're wearing gold rings, and so he's like, oh, this is all part of the test. This is all part of what's supposed to happen. So they beat the fuck out of him. They drag him into a room and throw him naked into a room with one other gold who's also very indignant about being beaten. And then like one of the people who picked him comes in and goes, okay, only one of you leaves this room alive. Tosses a gold ring on the floor and then leaves. And the person he has to fight is somebody he met on the train who he like seems like very nice and sweet and a good person.
Probably the nicest gold he's met so far.
Exactly. But he realizes that. And so he tries to tell him, like, just walk away, just leave, give me the ring and get out of here. And the guy's like, no, I can't disappoint my house, I can't disappoint my family, I have to. And he squares up to fight. And that guy is like a trained. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, so this guy's called Julian, right?
Yeah.
The brother of Cassius. I'm pretty sure they know that at that time.
They do. Yep.
And Julian and Cassius come from like probably the second highest noble family on the planet of Mars.
The rival family to the Arch-Governor of Mars, in fact.
And so the rite of passage of them completing this institution is a 100% has to happen, because they cannot be seen to be embarrassed. They have to be the strongest of the strong. Even though Julian is like the poet type. He is the, what's the guy from Sobrante, our little brother?
Oh, fuck, I don't remember his name.
That guy.
Yeah, the little bitch from Sir Bronte.
Yeah, but Julian's less, like, you don't want to punch him in the face quite as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
So Julian doesn't back down. And, neither does this guy, because he has to complete his mission. He's still, like, a sleeper agent. And he's still committed to his mission. And so he's not as elegant as Julian, who tries to do some kind of a martial arts kind of thing. He ends up just wailing on him, like stunning him and then collapsing his sternum with like a really powerful punch.
Yeah.
And then he walks like bleeding and broken from the room. It clearly traumatized by the fact that he just had to kill someone. Like the whole experience, it's hammered in like how much this really traumatizes Darrow. So he gets out to the room, and he meets one of his closest, a person who becomes one of his closest confidants throughout the whole series. The poet guy, I can't remember his name for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
Yeah, it's not.
I can't remember his name.
There's a very poetic character, and it might come to me, but he becomes a very close confidant throughout the entire series, and he and the main character kind of confide in each other, and that guy says that after going through that, he kind of suspects that there were a ton of people who like they admitted these people just to have them killed. Exactly. Yeah. They were people who... And it is confirmed later that the top 1% of the people who applied and took the test, they get in. And the bottom 1% of the people who applied, they get in. And the bottom 1% are just there to get killed.
But not all of the top 1% won their matches.
Exactly. And I think one of the guys who is the guy who tells them about this tells them like every now and again Darwin has a surprise, and like one of the most perfect, one of the highest scorer, highest scorer, he ends up dying getting his throat crushed by one of the people who was a low scorer. And so a few low scorers make it through, but mostly it works the way it intended. And it's also revealed a little bit later in the book that like the Golds are just as brutal on themselves as they are to the rest of society, because they have a department of quality control that ensures that thinks that the perfect ratio is about 13.12% of all golds should die before 1 year old. And they think that there's a certain percentage of golds that need to die in the Institute. They literally have taken natural selection as like a core doctrine of their society.
Yeah.
So like even though they treat the lower castes extremely brutal, they treat each other just as brutally.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes like a common theme, which is why when I was talking to you last night before I'd read a little bit further in the second book, I was starting to get disappointed in the way the story was going. Mm-hmm. Because Darrow was starting to really understand that. That like
Darrow's not that far from Darwin. I think maybe that's what they were going with.
Maybe. So like you said, I think you're right. We're gonna have to break this up into 2 parts. And we can continue on with it next time, but I do think, because we're already at 40 minutes, but at this point in the book, right after that big reveal has happened, like we had 2 big reveals. One, that the society is a lot bigger than he was led to believe, and 2, that the Golds aren't just all luxury and decadence. They're actually brutal conquerors who are just as brutal on themselves as they are on the lower castes.
Also, we should just discuss Cassius quickly.
We should, yeah, because that's a big one. Yeah. So we're gonna stop the plot synopsis here. We'll discuss what we've talked about so far and a few of the finer points, and then we'll end this segment. And we will pick this up either during next week's media segment or potentially on another segment 3 where we can summarize the last half of the book. So yeah. Cassius, want to take it away there?
So, as we know, Darrow brutalized Cassius's brother, but no one knows who was set up against who.
They purposely obscure it.
Yeah, so that, like, Darrow knows that he killed Cassius's brother, and Cassius is kind of warmed up to Darrow because Darrow's clearly a bit of a fucking badass. Yeah. And Cassius could use good men by his side.
Another alpha like he.
And so Cassius goes a bit like nutso when he sees that his brother hasn't arrived, and he's like, "Alright, which of you fuckers killed my brother?"
He very threateningly says, "Maybe we should all play a game. I'll tell you who I killed, and you can all tell me who you killed. I killed such and such. He was someone that I knew from a boy. I killed him the proper way, 1 quick strike, and it was over."
And so that becomes an ongoing thing in their relationship where they are good friends, but there is this constant dark secret hanging over Darrow's head.
And the thing is, like, Darrow is not portrayed as a heartless person, because every single time Cassius brings it up, he clearly feels guilty about it, because he says, "And there it is. He said his name again, Julian, and I feel the darkness rise in me." Because, even though these people are his enemies, the people who have oppressed his people, his fellow Reds, the people who killed his wife, he has a remarkable degree of perspective.
Yeah, playing the long game, which you see quite a bit in the part that you've literally just read in the second book. It's all about playing the long game.
Yeah. And there's a lot of moral complexity too, because as he goes through, and you'll see this when I summarize the rest of the book the next time we get back to this, he makes very intimate relationships with the rest of the Golds that he's with, and he starts to see them not as brutal oppressors high above him, who are just faceless, nameless, a thing, a concept. He starts to see them as people, and that causes a lot of moral strife within him.
Yeah, that causes him quite a few problems, more so than, like, okay, him being allies with, or him having certain friends definitely gives him benefits. But every one of those friends has this, at least presently, has this massive caveat of he can't tell them the truth.
Well, right, because if they ever find out he's a Red, it's established that his family, his entire clan would be wiped out, and he would be tortured and tortured and tortured, and then killed.
Yeah. But yes. John went up.
Sorry, I know we've gone over.
Right.
Yeah, so just to point out before we go on, the book has a very... It surprised me at multiple times. At the beginning, I thought it was going to be just like a rebellion story about the miners rising up, and it wasn't. There was more to it than that. And then I thought it was going to be about him, working with this terrorist group, but it wasn't. They made him into a Gold, and now he's an infiltrator. And then I thought that the Gold Society was going to be just this decadent kind of paradise that he was going to be disgusted with and then have no problem taking down. But it wasn't. It was a brutal Darwinian, thing. And then this institute, I thought it was going to be like a schoolyard sort of thing, but it wasn't. It was this brutal training ground. And there's a lot of other surprises that happen throughout the book, all the way up until the end. And they continue... Subversion of expectations is something that is, I think, overused in a lot of modern media. This book uses it right. It's not just it's not just surprising you for the sake of surprising you. The surprises have meaning and purpose. They're showing you as the reader. They're revealing things to you as they're revealed to the main character.
Yeah, and they change so many things in the society. You can't think of this society as anything like something that we would see as society in our own real world. I mean, you can certainly look back at history and see a lot of similarities, particularly with Romans.
Yeah.
And just survival of the fittest is a big theme running throughout it. But also the gods, all the teachers are named after different Greek gods.
Yeah, they are. And they do that quite a bit. The author takes a lot of effort to make sure that you as the reader understand that this isn't just a brutal, oppressive regime that's just brutal and repressive because it wants to be. It establishes that this is a thriving and very functional society. It's morally abhorrent to our current eyes, and people do suffer in it. But it is powerful. And so it really kind of challenges you to try and think. It challenges... It puts morality against rationality a lot. And it does it in a lot of very clever ways. It's such a good book. Just to give it and I'm sorry it took so long to read it, Blue.
No.
But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. And we will get on to this. We are going on. We're coming up on 2 hours for the podcast, so I think we're going to have to end it there. There will be a part 2 to this, probably next week, just so it's still fresh in my mind and can do a proper...
I imagine there's going to be at least 6 parts to this in the long run for the trilogy.
Yeah, so look forward to that, because I'm already partway through the second book. I'll try to slow down how fast I'm reading through it to actually be able to spread these out. We don't want to do a book review segment 6 podcasts in a row. Or maybe we do. Who knows? If you guys enjoy this, let us know.
Also next week we can, because it's another one of the wildcard ones next week.
Yeah, I think next week we'll definitely do the second part of this, because...
We'll finish Red Rising,
Yeah. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. This is segment 3, our wild card, and this week we are continuing the book review that we didn't finish last week. God damn it. He threw me off again.
It wasn't even a surprise one, it was just a slow burner and it got you.
Yeah, it wasn't like a jump out, it was just like a slowly, as I'm doing the countdown, just saying goofy shit.
Honka-punk chunk donkalunks.
God damn it. All right, so a quick recap. We are going over the book Red Rising, which I finished last week, and I'm already halfway through the second book. Now, last week we got about halfway through the book to the point where they had brief synopsis. Society tiered in terms of caste, and each caste is a color, so red, green, blue, violet, gold's on the top. A red, who didn't know exactly how extensive the society was, is picked up by a terrorist organization known as the Sons of Ares. They do some stuff with his body and turn him into a gold, essentially. Do all this genetic and body modification to make him look exactly like a gold, and has all the same characteristics and everything like that. They train him up, educate him and everything, and his job is to infiltrate gold society. So he gets into this place called the Institute, gets into a institute, the Institute of Mars, and it's where the upper crust of the golds go. And if they get in and they pass, then they come out as a rank called Peerless Scarred, essentially the best of the golds, the rulers of society. And so he finds out. They do a house selection, a Hogwarts-style house selection, except twist, when you get into your house, half the people are just there to be killed. And
don't you love that bit where, Hermione's breaking Ron's jaw in the basement?
She just uses that repair spell to put him back together and then beats him to death again. Oh my god, Harry Potter would be very different.
Especially because they're kids.
Yeah. Well, technically, they're kids in this. I think they make a point that they go into this institute at the age of 16 or 17.
Yeah, so they're not...
They're not kids. They're late teens.
Yeah.
But...
What is it that it's a Red Rising quote, in fact. Old enough to screw, old enough to... I can't remember what the last part is.
I can't remember, what the other one is.
Yeah.
But it goes along with it.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Anyway, so we got to the
crew.
point...
Old enough to crew.
Crew. Oh, right. Yeah, that's because of the Reds. Yeah, the Reds, they're... if you're old enough to screw, old enough to crew. So they start working in the mines at, age 13 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they get to the end, and Cassius, the guy who... the main character, Darrow, met the night before, Cassius Albolona, and the brother of the guy that Darrow made friends with on the train ride over to the Institute, Julian Albolona, the guy that he had to beat to death in a dirty cell, is now noticing that his brother's not here, and is trying his best to figure out who killed his brother. And so he tries to play a game, no one's biting, and they go off. And Darrow kind of lies so that no one suspects him. Right, no one suspects him, or so Cassius doesn't suspect him, because he's a son of a very powerful noble house, and also pretty much the most dangerous and highly skilled people there, who, lets it be known he's a well-trained martial artist. He kills his guy by collapsing his trachea with, one hit.
He's a very good swordsman as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so... they all kind of get to know each other. They kind of meet some of the other characters, some of the major ones: Antonia, Titus, Severo, Roke, Cassius. I already talked about.
There was another lady. I can't remember what her name was though. Honestly, the women don't have a big part apart from Mustang.
Her name started with a Q, the other woman, because she ends up being a love interest for one of the other side characters later.
Shit. It was Brooke's love interest, wasn't it?
I wanted to say it was Quinn or something like that.
Quinn, yeah, I was like Quinn.
Quinn? Okay. Yeah. But, I mean, there are three... You're right, there aren't as many prominent female characters in the story. I mean, there's the Sovereign, who's the queen of the golds.
There is later.
Yeah,
you also get the sister, who's pretty cool.
But in the Institute, you're right. There's only 3 or 4 female characters of note, and there's probably about double that male characters of note. But what have you. So they go through, but there's also they make a point that there's also a lot fewer women in the institute.
Yes.
So the ratio makes sense. Anyway, so they go through, they spend their first night, well, not their first night, they spend the next night sleeping in a much more Spartan environment, and then they are shipped off to a remote plain, or a remote valley, in one of Mars's southern continents, I think they say.
Hang on. The houses have been decided by this point.
They have been, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't spoken about that.
Oh, you want me to go back to that? Yeah, so Blue made a point that I kind of skipped over last time, how the houses were actually decided. So they're in House Mars. How that was selected, it was kind of like, think like the Sorting Hat, except you have like a representative of the house accompanied by a few extra people that are from the Board of Quality Control, as they called it. And they go around and they make picks from all the people, and the higher your pick, essentially, the more prestigious it is. Like they think you're a good one to have, and so they make a point that Darrow was picked 10th. The House Mercury people wanted to pick him, but they kind of the quality control people were like, no, move on. And then Mars picked him. He was picked 10th out of like 500 people.
And I should point out, they're not in House Mars because they're on the planet Mars. It just all the students just get divided into all these different planets, or gods, I should say.
Yeah, it's from the Roman pantheon. So you have like House Diana, House Ceres, House Pluto, House Mars, House Jupiter.
Pluto's just full of dogs.
Yeah, so they're in House Mars, and it's explained by their proctor, the guy who's in charge of their house, that gives them a briefing on what they're going to be doing in the Institute. That House Mars is like, they're the hotheads. They're the people who live like the ancient Spartans. They don't get given any special treatment, and just through their fury and fortitude, they're supposed to, take their find their way and like win that way. And the
burns
contest
bright but burns shortest.
Yeah. So the contest is this: every house gets a castle, of some kind of place where they have to start off. Not necessarily a castle, but in most cases a castle. They get a standard, and that standard is the flag of their house. Mars is a wolf, and if they capture other people from other houses and stamp them on the forehead with the staff, they get a mark on their forehead, and they are now a slave to that house. They have to do whatever they're commanded to do
until they're retaken.
Until they're captured by someone else or released. And there's nothing actually stopping them from just running off, but if they do, essentially they're a pariah when they get out of the Institute. They're just eternally shamed.
Yeah, dishonored, and they dishonor their family.
Yeah.
Which in this culture is kind of worse than death.
Especially when you're talking about these like high nobility, like their houses. It's made a point that like honor duels are fairly common in this world amongst the higher up golds, because that whole family and house honor is something. And it's one of the things that makes Darrow such an outsider, because the family that they gave him, like for his history, they're basically nobodies from out in the asteroids, like out past Pluto, and so they
country bumpkins kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's got he's nobility, but he's from a tiny noble house of nobodies who don't exist anymore because the parents are dead.
Yeah,
which is how they were able to give him that identity. Anyway, so they explained that the goal is basically when one house is remaining, that's it, game over. That house wins. And so the goal is to be that final house, to outsmart and overtake your opponents and so on. So House Mars starts out, they have a castle and pretty much nothing else. And so they go out and they have some, I think they have some like very rudimentary equipment, but it's like nothing special. Like,
well, they see a table laden with food and tools.
Right, and it turns out to be a trap laid by House Ceres. And so in the early scenes, they're all running around out in the field trying to figure out, get the lay of the land and everything.
Yeah,
And so
punching trees.
Yep. I think at one point, Darrow and Cassius, like, they run down a deer and just take it down barehanded, and they're like, "Look, we have a meal."
Yeah.
Anyway, so after a while, things slowly, because there's no real leader. It's established that you become the primus of your house after you achieve certain things, and that's kind of rated by the proctors, the people who are overseeing this. Every house has a proctor assigned to it, and that proctor is the person who is they're always watching from this floating sky fortress they call Olympus, and they can choose if you've done something of merit to reward you by giving you some item of use. Like maybe they'll give you, I don't know, food or water or some kind of a tool as a reward for achieving something during the contest, like taking over another house. You can get like some sort of boon from them.
Yeah, Hunger Games style.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah.
Sorry, I just want to go back to the, unless you're going to get onto it, the trap thing, because there's a couple of significant things that come out of that.
No, go back to it. I was going to move on, but yeah, what's up?
Okay, so the two major things that they find out. One is that the other houses, not only did they get given food and tools, they also got given horses. So some of the houses were, from the start, been given a lot more wealth, and their house was in a far nicer place. Second of all, when Darrow and Cassius arrive at the trap where the tools are, Cassius picks up, I think, a pike or a sword or something.
Yeah.
And Darrow picks up a
table leg.
A sickle.
Oh no, the sickle, but it wasn't a sword. That one of them picks up a table leg.
That might have been Cassius.
Yeah, it probably was. So basically, they become immediately famous amongst their group because it was House Ceres that set the trap. So House Ceres didn't get horses, but they got a ton of food. They got a bakery and like wheat fields and bread and orchards. So they got tons and tons of food and fresh water and high walls. House Minerva got horses. And
right, yeah, I get those.
That's where Mustang comes in.
But the sling blade thing was kind of the most important bit.
It was, yeah. So because it's made a point that a sling blade is an item that is used by the Reds and down in the mines, so they can kill these pit vipers that jump out at them, or essentially slice off a limb if they get stuck. So he's used to using these curved blades, whereas the nobility is used to fighting with these razors or straight blades. And so that's why Cassius goes for the table leg and he goes for the sickle. And I think the sickle is actually being carried by one of the House Ceres people, and he like beats him or something like that. And it doesn't matter exactly how it happens, but so with just like a table leg and this dull sickle, the two of them manage to kick the crap out of like 5 or 6 different people, and then get away from the trap.
Yeah, and the sickle from then on becomes Darrow's symbol.
Yeah, they start calling him Reaper. Anyway, so some things happen. I won't get too deep into those, but because they're not terribly important, but there's a lot of interpersonal conflict. There's a lot of vying for who's actually in charge and whatnot. And they end up fragmenting into 3 distinct factions. One led by Antonia, one of the prominent female characters that I mentioned earlier, who's kind of made out to be from the very beginning a extremely like cold-hearted bitch, like ruthless. Like she'll do whatever it takes to be on top. And then Titus, who is described as just a fucking boulder of a man.
Cunt.
Yeah. Oh. Well, no, they haven't gotten there yet. It's clear that he's very violent, and it's clear that he's very large. That's all you know about him so far. But at this point, he doesn't seem to be that much of a cruel person, but that does come later. And then Darrow and Cassius form their own faction. And essentially, this is where you got picked in the draft kind of comes in. The low drafts, the people who were chosen later, the low and the mid drafts, they kind of the smattering of random people, they side with Darrow and Cassius, because those two didn't really play politics too much. So you've got those two of the greatest people in the group, and kind of the dregs. And then some of the mid to high drafts go with Antonia, and then Titus gets like the high drafts. And so Darrow and Cassius manage to find matches, which allows them to cook their food, whereas no one else has fire, pretty much, and so they're eating raw or just foraging for berries and roots and things like that. And this is where you start to see like a dark side to Titus, though, because after a few forays against House Minerva, I think it was, and House Ceres, they do some captures, and it's made clear that some of the female people that have been captured by Titus's faction are abused, let's say, to put it very lightly. And that kind of enrages Cassius and Darrow, and they make a point that they need to take him down. And so they form like a tentative alliance with Antonia. And they do, I don't remember exactly how this happens, but they do manage to essentially they tentative alliance with Antonia, and then they also make a deal with House Minerva, sort of. Because House Minerva was the one with the horses. And this is where the girl Mustang comes in. She's one of the other prominent... She's the head of the House Minerva, the leader of their faction. And also
one other main character who is awesome.
Pax
Telemanos. Yes.
I'll get to him, because he becomes, like, epic in one of the fights later. I don't want to get to him just yet, though.
Okay.
Anyway, so stuff happens. I don't remember exactly how the chain of events goes. It's been a bit now. And this is always the issue with me on audiobooks. If I read a book, I typically remember things very clearly and very vividly. But if I listen to a book, I'm a lot less likely to remember the fine details. So they managed to retake the place, and they have a big fight. I actually think this happens before they take down Titus, but they have a big fight with House Minerva, and this is where the character Blue's talking about comes in. A guy who's described as, like, much larger than Titus is like riding beside Mustang, the woman who is leading House Minerva. And he's just described as just his arms are described as instead of having muscles, it looks like he has two boulders under his skin. So he's described as this giant man, like he's essentially riding a warhorse, and it looks like a pony underneath him. And he has this habit of, whenever he charges into battle, he just shouts his own name, like just Pax Telemanos, and at one point in the fight, like, he grabs Darrow and is, like, trying to squeeze him to death. And Darrow, like, with nothing else to do, just starts kneeing him as hard as he can in the balls.
Yeah.
And that's how he manages to take him down. And there's a funny exchange later on when they have another conflict, where he's like, when he's like, you can hear him calling out from inside the fortress, and Darrow's taunting him. He's like, "Was that a woman's voice I heard? My goodman, did something happen to your balls?" Oh, yeah. There's some good.
Pax is a babe.
Oh, he's a fucking awesome character. Like, he's an absolutely awesome character. So they managed to eventually take down Titus, and Cassius and Darrow established themselves as the de facto leaders, with Darrow being the leader of leaders, and Cassius begrudgingly being his second, although he doesn't like it.
And Severo establishing himself as a psychotic little monkey.
Yes.
Who's very clever and very lethal.
So that was the other thing. There's another little subfaction, the lower drafts, the kind of less prominent golds, like Severo and a couple of the other ones. They establish their own little... They essentially become Darrow's special ops folks, called they call themselves the Howlers, because they wear wolf cloaks and they howl as they go into battle.
And they're trained by Severo.
Yeah, and they're absolutely insane. Like, there's one battle where they hide inside the bodies of horses to do an ambush.
Well, that was while Pax was fighting Darrow.
It was, yeah.
And then at the end of the fight, Darrow howls, and all the people who just lost the fight were like, what the fuck's he doing? And then suddenly all around them.
Yeah, they jump out of the corpses of horses. They were just hiding in the horse corpses all night, and then they take the castle. That's how they eventually beat House Minerva. And I was going to get to that because that happens after what I was about to say, which is Titus. This was the issue. Titus, when they finally do take him and take him down, they feel the need to mete out justice, because it's not, they're trying to, they make a point several times that this game that they're playing, the Institute, is to take the Golds and take them through the whole growth of civilization. Like they're in the Dark Ages, and then they are making their way up to a feudal age, and then they're making their way up to a more civilized age, and then they have to develop their own justice system and whatnot. And in the end, Darrow ends up allowing Cassius to duel and kill Titus, because at this point Cassius thinks that Titus is the one that killed his brother.
Also, previously, Cassius, when the bad things were happening to the women, Cassius went to duel Tychus, lost to him, and Tychus pissed on him.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. They beat the shit out of him and then peed on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of piss in this book.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cassius.
Got to it. No, don't start. We were having this. Oh God.
Don't explain.
There's so many things that you can make fun of, or that you can meme in this book. It is a lot more serious, though. So anyway, so Cassius does a duel with him and doesn't finish him honorably. He basically makes it last as long as he can and makes Titus suffer. And it ends up being very ugly, and it looks like just sanctioned vengeance instead of justice, and it kind of it really hurts Darrow's authority as a leader.
Yeah.
And kind of knocks him off the heap.
But also you've gone past the Titus bit.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, sorry. That's the other thing that he finds out is that it's made clear that there's very significant differences between the diction of the lower classes and the upper classes. So, for instance, a red would swear by saying bloody hell, and a gold would swear by saying gory hell. And
bloody damn and gory damn.
Yeah, bloody damn and gory damn. Yeah, thank you. And when he's interrogating Titus to see why he did this, Titus goes off on a rant and then says, just like, he talks about somebody that he knew being abused in a similar way. He's like, they did it first. They all did it first. And Darrow's like, who? And then Titus says something like, it was the bloody damn Golds or something like that. And it was at that moment Darrow realized Titus is another one just like him, a red who had been cut and stitched together to look like a gold. And that's why he was just so callous and eager to kill everyone, because he sees all the Golds as an enemy.
Yeah.
And he realizes this is what they were worried that Darrow would become. They wanted him not to be an instrument of pure vengeance, but a true infiltrator. Somebody who would think. And Titus is what the opposite of that is. Somebody who is just basically a blunt instrument. Somebody who's just out for revenge. And so that's one of the other reasons that Darrow decides to kill him, because otherwise there's a chance that he might be discovered.
What's our time on the clock, by the way, right now?
We're at 20 minutes in.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to have to speed up a little bit.
Yeah, no worries.
So they do eventually take... they don't end up taking House Minerva out. Well, they do take the house. They take most of the people, and they take the castle. But they don't take the leader. She gets away with the standard, Mustang. And despite trying to track her down, they aren't actually able to do that.
Also, they capture Pax.
They do capture Pax, yes. Pax all telemonos. I'm sorry, I just love that. I love the idea of just this giant hulk of a man shouting his own name as he charges into combat.
Yeah, it's very Leroy,
Yeah, Leroy Jenkins. He's the Leroy Jenkins of the book.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that happens. Again, they start to become a legitimate superpower. They have taken down at least two houses, because they also, to take down that house, they used House Diana, or not used them, but allied with them. But House Diana betrayed them, and so they took down House Diana too. So they've taken down 2 houses. They have a bunch of slaves. They haven't lost too many of their own people. And aside from, they have the Diana standard, but they don't have the Minerva standard because the leader got away with it.
Yeah.
Here's where the big twist happens, though, because there's a big rising star in the south and stuff like that. Things are going. They start hearing rumblings from the northern part of the battlefield of
the Jackal.
The Jackal, yes. Another prominent figure to rival the Reaper, as Darrow is being called. Now, this is where things get real, though. A emissary from the Jackal comes down and gives Cassius a disc, like a hollow, and says, "Oh, you'll need to look at this." And Darrow gets worried because he's like, "Oh shit, that might be something that's going to turn him against me or reveal me or something like that, or reveal that I killed his brother." And so he asks Severo, his the leader of the Howlers, to try and steal it off him. Anyway, so they go through and eventually they do whatever mission they were going to do. When Cassius comes back, he calls Darrow out and rides him out to the middle of nowhere. And Darrow realizes, oh shit, he watches it, he knows. He's bringing him out somewhere to duel him, essentially. And sure enough, he said, "Oh, I didn't even need to watch it. I wasn't going to watch it until Severo tried to steal it from me. Then I knew I had to." And he makes a point of that it's not. He says, many people became an animal when they came in here, but he's like, after watching that video, I saw that you were an animal before you came in here. The way you killed my brother, because he was completely formless, just flailing around like a gorilla. Essentially. Yeah. So Cassius duels him and kicks his ass.
Leaves him for dead.
Darrow ends up getting saved by Mustang, the woman that was the head of House Minerva that he let get away. And so she nurses him back to health. The two of them have a little budding thing, a romance almost.
Yeah, it's a couple of people come to the camp because they're in a forest because they're basically both exiles. And while Darrow's out, a couple of, I can't remember what house it is.
They were Oathbreakers, people who were captured and ran away.
Right. Yeah, they were going to do some bad things to Mustang.
Yeah.
So they tied him to a tree or something? I can't remember. It was pretty bad.
They tied him to the tree and left him there, and then did something to allow them to be found. They lit a flare or something like that, or they did something. Anyway, so they make their way out, and they manage to survive. Darrow, in the meantime, the proctor of House Mars comes down and talks to him at one point. Mustang has gotten sick, and Darrow's out trying to find something to help her, and realizes he's being followed by someone who's cloaked, and it turns out it was the proctor of House Mars, the guy who's in charge of their house. And so he talks to him for a while, and it's through this conversation that Darrow learns that the game is fixed. The Jackal is the son of the arch-governor of Mars, so the head of the whole planet, and he's essentially paid off the proctors to let his son win, or fix it so his son wins. Yeah. And so he's getting special treatment, special equipment, and because Darrow was rising in the ranks so fast, that's why the Hollow was given to Cassius to turn him against him. So that happens, and he manages to, the one guy's yeah, people have seen this, people will offer you apprenticeship, you'll have a nice position after this, don't worry about it, don't throw your life away. And Darrow has the exact opposite reaction. He's like, no, fuck that. I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this my way. And he talks the guy into giving him antibiotics for Mustang and comes up with a new plan for how they're going to win. And essentially what they do is him and Mustang go around and defeat and take all of the... they find a bunch of Oathbreakers, people who have had the slave mark put on and then decided to say fuck it and run away. This isn't worth it. And so what they do is they beat them and then take their marks, put a mark on, and then take the mark off, essentially freeing them. And so they end up building a ragtag like army out of people who have run away, basically the dregs of the dregs.
Yeah.
And they start doing like guerrilla warfare. Like they wear like white wolf cloaks and hide in the snow and ambush people and keep taking more slaves and freeing them and adding them to the army. And by doing this, Darrow's building up this huge ragtag militia of like highly skilled guerrilla warriors. And it culminates in one of my favorite scenes where they free Pax through a trap near House Mars, and Pax, as soon as he's freed, just goes happily swinging haymakers at the people around him.
And he's not even mad at Darrow for like losing his testicles to him.
Like the moment that he's freed and he realizes that Darrow is now helping Mustang, he just gives him a big hug and he's like, "Oh yeah, good man, let's go."
Reaper.
The guy is so awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it goes on and they manage to take a few houses and then move north. Like they've got a fairly sizable force now, and his plan is, because he finds out the Proctors have to leave when their house is gone, eliminated. And he finds out that the two houses that are arrayed against him are Jupiter and... there's one other one that I'm forgetting. Jupiter and one other one. But they're both in the north.
Yeah.
And so he heads up there with his ragtag group, which is becoming a very serious threat at this point. And they manage to take down one house altogether. Like, just wipe it off through like harrowing attacks, and they're getting more and more harassment now from the Proctors, who are like, one of them sicks a bear on Darrow, one of them
and not like a normal bear, like
a hybrid like mutant bear. Yeah
all the animals in this entire like area have been created by sculptors. They aren't natural animals.
Yeah, they're all genetically engineered. So anyway, so he manages to get away, and despite the harassment from the Proctors, they managed to get through. The Howlers rejoin them. Severo, who they had been left behind with House.
Dead.
Yeah, they thought he was dead, but it turns out he comes back and saves Darrow from the bear.
No, I mean, Severo thought Darrow was dead.
Yeah, Severo thought Darrow, and actually, it's revealed that once Cassius came back and said, "Oh yeah, Darrow was killed by House Ceres," or something like that. No one believed him, and half the people left Mars. Not half of them, but a good chunk of the most loyal people to Darrow left, including the Howlers. And so they came north, and now now he's got his elite special forces back. So they pull off a trick against the Proctors and manage to Severo and the Howlers go through like a latrine pit to make it into the castle, and they take the one house, not Jupiter, but the other one that was against them.
I can't remember the names very well.
Yeah, so they take it over, and now he owns that house, and then they move against Jupiter as quickly as possible so that they don't have time to stop him.
Is that the one that's the empty castle?
No.
Or I say empty, I mean...
No, that's... Yeah, the next one is the empty castle.
Okay.
So then they make it to the House Jupiter, which is mostly unoccupied because they say there's a siege going on against another castle off to the west of it or whatever. And there's only this small guy with kind of like a scrawny guy, ill-fitting ring, and they're like, yeah, just okay, well, whatever. He agrees to surrender the castle to them. It's just like, the only condition is you don't enslave us, right? Mm-hmm. And they agree. And they decide to do... Oh, it was House Bacchus.
Right.
That was the one I took before, I think. Because they have, like, barrels of what they thought was wine, but it's actually just grape juice. And this is used in a trick. So he suspects this scrawny guy that surrendered the castle, and so they do a ploy of everyone getting drunk on grape juice and
pretending to get drunk,
to try and trick him, and because he realized this guy who's pretending to be from House Jupiter is actually the Jackal from House Pluto, who is the arch guy's son, governor's son. And so what he does is like he does something that he thinks is going to make him surrender. Like he stabs the guy's hand, And he's like, you can walk out of here unconditionally if you just chop your own hand off. And thinking that he'd never do it. And he does it.
Because the jackal is named... Well, do you want to explain why the jackal is called the jackal?
Yeah, because he early on in the Institute game, he was trapped in a cave with most of his other house. And they had no food but plenty of water. So they ended up eating each other to get out. And a jackal will notoriously chew its own limb off to get out of a trap.
Yeah, and that's why when Darrow pins his hand to the table, he's like, "You're a jackal. If you're really what you say you are, you will cut off your own hand, and then we'll let you walk away."
And then he does, and he's like, "You see, a true Gold's power is not in his strength, but in his mind. What use do I have for a hand?" And then he cuts his own hand off, and Darrow realizes a mistake, like, "Oh shit, I should have just killed this guy. Like, I shouldn't have let it go this far." And at which point, one of the proctors flies through the room, throws like a flashbang grenade in, or drops one, and then the jackal picks it up, throws it, and goes to stab Darrow. Pax jumps over him to defend him, and the jackal just shanks the fuck out of Pax and kills him.
Yeah, and then escapes.
At which point, Darrow flies into an absolute rage. And he had... Oh, sorry, I skipped over a bit. The Proctor of House Mars comes to warn him again that this is a bad idea, at which point Darrow tricks him, stuns him, knocks him out, and steals his grav boots, which are like these, basically, think like jet boots.
Does he get his razor as well?
He doesn't get his razor, but he does get hit that finger ring back that he got as a gift. It's a ring that has an extendo blade in it.
Oh, yeah.
And so Darrow goes chasing after the guy who dropped the grenade. One of the proctors, the Proctor of House... I want to say it was House Jupiter?
I think it was Jupiter, yeah.
Anyway, so he chases him down, and just in a fit of rage, like, manages to get up close, tackle him, get underneath his shield, and, like, stick the blade right through his, like, the eye slit in his armor, and, like, twist and kill the guy. At which point...
While they were, like, hovering in the air above a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. It was like I in my mind when I was listening, I was picturing it in the middle of a storm too, just because it would have been even more of a metal scene.
Yeah, and so they take his grab boots,
and they use that to essentially storm Olympus. So Darrow's like, "Fuck this, we're not playing your games anymore," and he takes his whole army up to Olympus, and they go room by room and just like take people out. They're like, they take down the proctors. The ones that won't surrender, they kill. The ones that will or that are defeated, they knock out and tie up and stuff. A few of them are really good natured about it too. Like the Mercury one is like, "Oh, look at this."
That's the crazy guy, isn't it?
The Mercury guy is the happy guy that almost recruited him in the beginning. Yeah, and he's just jolly about the whole thing.
But he still fights him. And Darrow's like, "I can't risk you actually being better than me." And then he just shoots him in the chest with a stun gun, and then ties him up. And it's funny, because even after he shoots him in the chest with a stun gun, the guy's on the ground, like, in pain, laughing, and he's just like, "Oh, I didn't see that one coming." It's just still very good-natured about the whole thing. And the gods weren't expecting that. Like, there was two of them, I think they were like, just finished having sex or something, and they come into the room and they're like...
It was one of the female proctors. She was just like, she had just had a bath. She was laying in a bathrobe with a glass of wine, just watching some footage or something like that. And it's heavily implied that she was banging the guy that he just killed, the Jupiter Proctor.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they take Olympus, and then he sends Mustang off to take down the Jackal. And it's at this point that the Mars Proctor, the guy that he had tied up, and the guy that had been kind of reluctantly helping him up until this point, and who would let him know about the bribery and the corruption and how the game was fixed, reveals to him that Mustang is actually the twin sister of the Jackal, the guy who had escaped, and the guy who was the Archduke's son. And he goes like, "Oh shit, she's going to betray me, and then they're going to come back against me with an army." Mm-hmm. And so he flies down, breaks the siege on House Mars that was happening, frees some people, meets back up with Cassius, who is like haggard and like worn, and all his old friends who were still with House Mars greet him, Roke being one of them, who's barely a skeleton of a man at this point, and just hugs him and like, oh, it's so good to see you again, Darrow. Cassius, on the other hand, is like...
Gives up.
He's become like a bitter old man at this point. But before he gives up and leaves, he like sucks some blood off of a scab on his hand and then spits it in Darrow's face. And then says like, you know, after what you did, know that this is a blood feud. Don't think that you can ever be in a room with me and breathe the same air as me and not have it end with yours or my death or something like that. And so it's just like, and Darrow's like taken aback at the pure venom in his voice. And finally, as they're leaving, they get back to Olympus and they're trying to, like, he went down to Mars to try and recruit an army to fight against the army he thinks Mustang is going to bring against him. And then what does she come back with? Her twin brother, like, bound and gagged, and just tosses him on the ground. She's like, hey, I got him.
Yeah, naked.
Yeah. And so,
it's kind of weird.
Yeah, they do make a point, though, in the book that, like, golds are supposed to be above nudity. They don't see a problem with it. They don't care.
True.
They're too far above such petulant mortal things.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so that ends it. He won the game, and for the first time in history, the students took Olympus. And so he becomes like an instant celebrity.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry.
The several in the audio logs.
Yep, good point. So there's a point where, like, all of the rings they're wearing all contain nano cameras and microphones. There's cameras all throughout the arena, so this is all being watched and recorded. The way that the Proctors were able to cheat is they can edit the footage before they send it out to the rest of the solar system.
Because the solar system's all watching everything that has happened.
Yeah. It's like it's a very Hunger Games-esque sort of thing. And the reason they watch is they're looking for potential students, people that they might want to take on as an apprentice or something like that, and bring into their household. So he realizes that there's a couple different things that they'll need to edit out. So he asks Severo to go in there, take the footage, trim it down, edit it, and basically tell the story they want to be told about how they were wronged and now they're the victors and stuff like that. They were only, fighting back against people who were trying to cheat them out of their rightful victory. And so Severo goes in there and he does that editing. And in the meantime, while that's happening, the people who are in charge of the tournament, or I say tournament, the institute, the game, they all show up with a big coterie of people. The arch-governor of Mars is there, the guy whose son is now naked, bound, and gagged on the floor. He shows up along with a coterie of the highest nobility, and they all kind of chat and talk with each other. And the funny thing is, Darrow was thinking he was in trouble, but they don't seem to give a shit about the Proctors he killed. The Golds are very much Darwinian, survival of the fittest. Like, if they weren't strong enough to beat a student, then they should deserve to die. That sort of thing. Anyway, Severo comes back out, and he says something very ominous that kind of implies that he might suspect what Darrow is, but nothing overt. Because when Darrow killed the Jupiter Proctor, that fit of passion when they're fighting over the mountain in the sky, he shouts, he shouts "bloody damn" at one point. Again, that being set up as something that Golds just don't say. It's a very weird turn of phrase. In fact, even Darrow's name is not a typical name for a Gold, but he wanted to keep it when they changed him. And so everyone always comments, Darrow, that's a very off-color name. Anyway, so all of this happens, and the Arch-Governor of Mars kind of has a quiet word with Darrow and offers him the chance to join his household just in exchange for don't say anything about this. Don't say anything about the bribery and the everything like that. And this works for Darrow, because Darrow's like, he needs to gain power and gain prominence in society so that he can achieve his mission of taking down...
Just a reminder, this is the man who sacrificed his wife to death.
Yes, this is the same man that condemned his wife to hang and watched her hang. And was very cold and callous about it. And this is a really good point about Darrow's character, is that he is willing to essentially bend the knee even to people who he loathes, who killed his wife, like the only reason for living, destroyed his life as a Red. And he's willing to do that just to like achieve his greater, like he's got an eye on the end game, and he's not gonna let him, aside from a few fits of stupidity, like he does always, he's got his eye on the long game, and that I love him as a character for that. So, anyway, and that's where the first book ends, with him joining, what was it, Augustus I've
got Fabii in my mind now, but I know it's not.
Is it Arcos?
Alun? No, not Alun.
No, Alun is the Sovereign's family.
Yeah. God, I've forgotten. It's been too long. But also, House Bologna is there.
Yeah, House Bologna, and it's established that Cassius's House Bologna, they are bitter rivals with the Archgovernor's family. Like, bitter rivals. Like, if there's any chance we can get to kill your family, we're gonna do it.
Especially because they all know that he killed Julian, and Julian was like their mother's favorite child.
He was like the sweet younger brother that everyone loved and doted on.
Yeah, and the Bolognas have like a whole bunch of brothers and sisters. Like, it's a big family.
Yeah,
they have even more reason to hate Darren. They're just kind of glaring at him in that ceremony.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the end of the first book. We are pretty far over on time, but I do want to have just a quick like discussion of the book as a whole. So this is going to be a long podcast. You know, if you stuck around this long, hopefully you enjoyed it. But yeah. So thoughts.
Fantastic fucking book.
I agree with that. I wouldn't have finished it in a week if I didn't think that.
That's very obvious based on the fact that we've talked about it for like over an hour now total. Almost 2 hours probably over the two podcasts.
So I obviously listened to it in audiobook format, and a lot of the scenes where Darrow was putting together his guerrilla force and like, you know, the battles that they were going through on that, I was listening to like while I was running, and I was finding myself setting like a better running pace just because I'm like, oh man, I'm getting amped just listening to this.
Yeah. Like, and so Severo and his group are they're one of the coolest things. So they were like the worst scorers in their team. Severo was like bottom 5% of the people in the exam. He only got 3 because he murdered the top guy in a ruthless fashion.
Yeah.
And yeah, Severo's so like fucking insane in the eyes of all the other golds. He like hunted wolves, he wore their pelts. He took on animalistic characterizations, and because he was like half the size of the other golds.
Yeah, sure. It's made clear that like the high golds, the high tier golds, they're like well over like 2 meters tall.
Yeah.
So like for the American audience out there, like 2 meters is like that's over 7 feet tall. You're
6'6".
Is it 6'6"?
Yeah, because I'm 195 centimeters.
Huh.
Yeah,
I honestly thought it was taller than that.
I'm 6'5".
I don't know. I always thought it was taller than that. But yeah, but essentially they're all, well, the high tier golds at least are pushing 7 feet tall. So big, well muscled, extremely tall. Severo is just a mere like, I don't know, 5'11", 6 feet. Like,
still a lot bigger than Darrow when he was a Red.
They make a point at one point in the second book that Severo, like Darrow realizes that he thinks of Severo as short, but he's like, he would have towered over me as a Red.
And all his followers are equally like they have like comical names, like was it Shitbag or something? Was one of them.
Yeah, Severo is referred to as Goblin.
Yes, that's true. And all of the Howlers have these like shitty names.
Yeah,
kind of poking fun at their features.
But it's kind of part of their character. They're like the low of the low, and they fight dirty. Like that's their thing. And later on in the books, once they actually get out into the world, they become Darrow's actual special forces.
Yes, and they grow a bond that you don't really see from any of the other characters. Like it's a very not gold thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and
but
they make a point over and over in the book that what Darrow did by assembling a militia from different houses of free people and not slaves was very weird. Like it just wasn't done.
Yeah.
And he like inspired loyalty that way.
Because he gave people an opportunity to earn their honor back, and so a lot of people were going for that.
My God, man, you're gonna take his gory damn head off.
But yeah, so there's I think 4 or 5 books out at the moment. I kind of consider it the first trilogy, and then the stuff that comes after, because it tends to be it's a good way of breaking down the thing. So I don't know. Maybe in a month's time we might talk about
the second book,
Golden Sun.
Yeah, that's the one I'm on right now. And again, I'm halfway through it. I'm enjoying it so far. I did hit a point where I was like, oh God, I was doubting. I was having some doubts as to whether I was going to enjoy it, and then Darrow came back, my man.
Yeah. And it goes after the first book. So the first book's all kind of confined to either. It's basically confined to Mars, but from the second book onwards, it expands. Vastly.
So far, like in the second book, it's what happens after that. They're into wider society that's interplanetary. They've already been to like Mars, the moon,
no longer
Ganymede.
Stones.
Yeah, they're all over the solar system.
Battle cruisers. Anyway, that's just a spoiler for a month's time, I guess.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's not drag this on too long. We're at at the end. I think there's no need to really say anything. I think we both thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, you obviously enjoyed the book because you were pestering me to read it for so long, and for good reason.
I've read it many times.
Yeah, I have books like that I've reread quite a bit. All right. Let's call it an end. This has been an extremely long episode of the TMCJ podcast, episode 47. Hopefully you enjoyed listening, and hopefully you'll tune in again soon.